Okay, so moving on with lesson 2. We're going to talk about a key concept of terms and coefficients. So when we talk about an expression being written out as a sum, that means using all addition. If we have an expression that has subtraction, we can rewrite that subtraction as plus and negative, kind of like you see at the end of this expression. But those things that are separated by that addition are called terms. Okay, so a term that has a variable part, like 3x squared and 5x in this expression, we call those variable terms because they have variables. They can change. A term that has no variable part is a constant term. That's what negative 7 is in this expression. That is a constant term. It is not going to change. So a constant term doesn't have variables. When we have a term that's a product of a number and a power of a variable, that number is called the coefficient. So in this expression, 3 and 5 are considered coefficients. Okay? 3 is a coefficient, 5 is a coefficient. Negative 7 is not considered a coefficient because it doesn't involve the product of a number and a variable. So those are some key terms. Terms themselves, coefficients are also an important thing. So when we talk about applying the idea of terms in expressions, we talk about like terms. Like terms are terms that are either constants, so 5 and 6 would be like terms in an expression, or it would be those variable expressions that have the same variable and the same exact exponent on that variable. So when we look at 11x and 5x, those are of course like terms. 11x minus 5x, fairly simple. I just take 11 minus 5 is 6. When I combine like terms, I am not changing that variable. Okay? If it was x squared, it would remain x squared. If it was x to the third, it would remain x to the third. So this is just simplified all the way, 6x. So that's just combining two like terms. Now in part B, we've got a little bit more work to do. First, what I would do is I would distribute 2 through those parentheses. So that would become 2y plus 10. Then I would distribute negative 3 through those parentheses. So when you see something being subtracted, it's a good idea to write it as, and you guys got good at this last year, plus and negative. I can't really see that very well, but plus and negative. So this really becomes minus 3y plus 27. We treat this 3 right here as a negative 3. So negative 3 times y, negative 3 times negative 9. And from there, I'm going to mark these off as like terms. So 2y and negative 3y are like terms in that expression. 10 and 27 are like terms in that expression. So I just take 2y minus 3y, that would be negative y, right? You could write negative 1y and that's fine, but I'm just going to write negative y. Next, 10 plus 27, 37. These terms stay separate because they are not like terms. So any constants are just automatically like terms, right? You just add them like you normally add numbers. Variables, you got to keep track of same variable, same exponent, okay? Last part of example 2 here. 14x minus 6y plus 5x plus 13y. What happens here? I look for my like terms, and sometimes it helps to underline them or circle them or whatever, but 14x and 5x are like terms. Negative 6y, 13y. Those are like terms. So I'm just going to go through and take 14x plus 5x. That's 19x. And then negative 6y plus 13y. That becomes positive, so plus 7y. So make sure you treat that 6y as negative 6y. I read that term as negative 6y. So that is simplified. X and y, not like terms. That is simplified completely. So a lot of times people think simplifying means to get just a single number as an answer. That's not the case always. So this is a completely simplified expression. So I've got 4 guided practice here because you've got to see a lot of these examples to get them down. So right now, pause the video so that you can work through these and then check with me at the end as I go through them. So when I go through these guided practices, just make sure that you're paying attention and that you're doing these with some integrity and trying to kind of check where you're at, because if you're not sure, I can still help you. But the idea is that hopefully you can do these on your own. Hopefully I explained well enough that you can do these on your own. So these, I'm going to go through a little bit quicker than the examples. All right, so moving on to guided practice number 3. 11n minus 6 plus 14. I look for my like terms. 11n and 2n, negative 2n, are like terms. So this becomes 9n, negative 6 and 14 are like terms. So I write out plus 8. So it's picking out those like terms. That is simplified for number 3. For number 4, 2a cubed, 5a cubed. Those are like terms. So I could combine those, 2a cubed plus 5a cubed, 7a cubed. Negative 6a squared, if it doesn't have any like terms, it just remains the same, right? Negative 6a squared stays negative 6a squared. Number 5, just like the example up top, distribute. Distribute. If I distribute 6 through, 6x minus 24. Distribute negative 3 through, negative 3x minus 33. Okay? And then I look for my like terms. This one's a little bit easier to see, but I can combine 6x and negative 3x. That becomes 3x. Negative 24, negative 33. I combine those like terms. That becomes negative 57. And that is simplified as far as I can go. So my like terms are all combined. And then finally, the last guided practice, number 6 down here, I look for my like terms. Usually I like reading left to right. So if I look at negative 15 and I don't see any like terms that go with negative 15, I'm just going to leave it negative 15. It doesn't have any like terms in this expression. Then I move to positive 12x. Its like term is negative 7x. I combine those, I get 5x. 2y doesn't have any like terms. I'm going to keep it as 2y. Now, this is just extra right here, but when I write expressions, I usually try and write the constant term last, okay? Kind of like 3x minus 57, I wrote that constant term last. So you can kind of rearrange this just to make it easier to work with. You're going to see this later on in class. But the way I would rewrite this one, just to make it look a little more pleasing to me, I would write 5x plus 2y minus 15. So I've got to make sure that if I'm moving a term around, I'm using the right sign. If it's subtraction, that term is negative, so that's why I have subtract minus 15 at the end. So here you've completed the notes for lesson 2. You can move on from here to the next step. Make sure that you're asking questions. Make sure that you're going through each step and doing all of the must-dos and all of the should-dos. Okay? The only time you skip those should-dos is if you are behind. All right? To this point, I don't think anybody should be behind, so just keep plugging along. Ask me for help if you need it.